everyone. This is Freya, and welcome to our second episode of EDI Embrace It, Dignify It, Inspire It. As I've already explained to you in the first episode, I'm the Innovation Manager at Dynamo North East, and Dynamo has taken a very unique approach to address the equality, diversity, inclusion in the Northeast tech sector. And what they think is that embracing, dignifying, and inspiring from the diverse people around us make it very unique, and it also guides us in a better way and approach to accept people who are from diverse backgrounds but also who have and contribute a lot in our communities. So today we have an extremely interesting topic around discrimination, and we're going to learn how it aids and abets some mindsets that look down upon one another on the basis of race and other factors such as gender and such as sexuality, and we'll be talking about intersectionality. I know, or most of you would have been aware of this topic. This is something that we hear about, we discuss in our workplaces, in our private life, in our personal life, in places where EDI is being talked about. But today, to begin the session, I would like to first introduce you to the topic. So, whoever is listening to us for the first time, or whoever has not heard about intersectionality, they just get a little bit of hint what it is. So, guys, the intersectionality is a framework that takes into account people's overlapping identities and experiences in order to understand the complexity of prejudices they face. To talk mainly about the topic of intersectionality and the role it plays in the workplace today, I would like to introduce Lindsay and Lindsay, the founders of 50/50 Future Limited, today on the show. The company was set up due to a lack of diversity in the tech sector and the STEM sector, with both founders having a background in the regional tech sector with Campus North and Tech for Life. During their time in the industry, they started creating initiatives to open doors for more diversity in STEM with both young girls and women since 2016. 50/50 was spun out as its own company in 2019, and there was a clear lack of offer around diversity and gender balance in the marketplace across all sectors. So let's welcome these two amazing women to the show today, because I believed, and it's just I'm telling you because I've met them once, and the way their experiences are and the amount of work they have done in the Northeast tech sector is absolute inspirational. And I really wanted them to come to the show. So not only me and myself and the Dynamo, but we would be able to, spread their voices, spread what they feel and what the amazing work they're doing here to a wider audience. So let's welcome Lindsay and Lindsay.
Hi.
Hello, Lindsay and Lindsay. How are you both?
Very well. Yeah, not too bad at all. Thank you. Thanks so much for having us on as well.
No problem. You're very much welcome. We are very, very privileged to have you on the show, because we believe that the amount of work you've done in the tech sector in Northeast around EDI has been tremendous and absolute amazing. And we would like to hear from you. So before we begin on, would you like to let us know about 50/50 and yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So 50/50 is our training and consultancy company, and like you referred to, it was set up off the back of the lack of diversity in the tech sector. So what we do now is we work with a variety of organisations in any sector, and although we're called 50/50, it's not really about 50/50 bums on seats as such. It's more about equal opportunities. And we do have a gender balance specialism. That's our experience. We don't profess to have experience in all areas of diversity, as you know, we don't have that personal experience ourselves, but we are proactive in finding out about it. But what we do is we make sure that any awareness that we raise or any tools that we give to companies translates across all areas of diversity and inclusion. So it's really about the individual rather than a specific underrepresented group.
That's great. So, Lindsay, what is your take on about the work you do? And would you like to tell us a little bit more about 50/50 and how you started off with Lindsay?
Yeah, so Lindsay and I met back in the Campus North days, and it was through sort of all of our shared experiences in the tech sector that we really discovered our passion for more diversity and inclusion, to just be at the forefront of everything that we do. So hence why we have 50/50 now. I think Lindsay's right that it's all about the inclusion piece for us. So even though we do have that gender specialism, it's really about each individual person and making sure that we do everything in our power to make sure that everyone feels like they really belong and that they thrive and that they're welcomed. So we work with organisations either on a consultancy piece where we help them create their D&I strategies, or with some organisations we just work with them on training. So they may have highlighted some areas that they really want to pay attention to, whether that's like unconscious bias or setting the tone for diversity and inclusion in the organisation. Then we'll go in and deliver training, or as it is these days, we'll deliver it virtually online.
Okay, that's great. So obviously you are aware that it's our second episode. This is something that Dynamo has started to amplify the voices of people who are already doing so much work around EDI in the Northeast tech sector. So obviously the topic is what is intersectionality and how we are surrounded with it. I would like to go back to Lindsay, and Lindsay, would you like to just shed some light on what is intersectionality? I know I've explained a little bit more complex, but how do you see it, and how are we surrounded with it?
So I think it comes down to just treating everybody as an individual and understanding that they all are made up of different layers of how they are as a person. So one layer of them might be that they're female, another layer might be that they have a particular background or a sexual orientation, and people are made up of all of these different kinds of layers, and it's how they cross over. So they might experience some things as a female that other females might experience as well, but then there might be all of these extra layers that we need to take into account, such as race, or such as educational background, or anything really. There's quite a lot within intersectionality that makes up an individual, and some of those layers are visible and some of them are invisible. That's why we really need to be more aware of people as individuals rather than just on what we can see.
Okay, that's great. As you've said, that obviously some are invisible factors that contribute. And one of the biggest myths that's surrounding as intersectionality is that it only consists of factors such as gender and race. Not everybody looks at the elements such as sexuality, ability, age, immigration status. That is something that is very much overlooked at. And they're very deep rooted and so invisible to notice, but they play a very big role in the mindset that exists behind it. So I would like to ask Lindsay, how do you think something like this can be countered?
I think it's having a general awareness. So, and it's an education process, both personally and professionally, so in our workplaces, but also just from our own self, having that learning mentality. The John Hopkins diversity wheel, I'm not sure if you've seen it before, but it's a really great visual representation to highlight those visible diversity traits, so things like our age, our gender, our race, but also in the outer portion of that wheel, it's more of those invisible diversity traits, our sexuality, our education background, parental status, and it just helps really understand that as humans we're all really complex, and having an appreciation of that, I think, goes really far. So,
okay, yes, I think that's very much true what you've mentioned. Obviously, that leads to my second question, is that obviously we know that it does exist in the workplace, and because this is what we are working on in Dynamo, to reach out to workplaces in the tech sector. Obviously, we at Dynamo cannot do so much to do everything in Northeast, and as Lindsay was saying before, it's us as well that we have to take responsibility and do our part, rather than doing it as a whole. So how does intersectionality, you think, or you have seen take place in the workplace, and what we can do to eliminate it?
So really, I think when it comes to intersectionality, we really need to be mindful of embracing intersectionality and making sure that it's part of our workplace culture, where we can be as inclusive as possible. So it's not just about having a diverse workforce. It's about how we are being inclusive and being mindful of other people in the different layers that they have. So, and like Lynn's mentioned with the Johns Hopkins wheel, it is a great visual representation of what's invisible and what's visible, but also some of those things change over time as well. So some things such as sexual orientation and race are, permanent, but then there's other things such as income or education or political views that change over time as well. So I think you really need to have a workplace with a focus on being inclusive. And for us, that has to be led from the top, so led from senior management, and that awareness really being harnessed at that level so that it maintains a priority, and then led from the bottom up with all of the employees and the understanding that this is the mindset of the company. And things like unconscious bias training are a massive part of that, where it really does help you see some of the more subtle barriers that people face, but there's obviously a lot more work to do than just an unconscious bias training session to, to really make meaningful change.
Very true. And as you've said, it's from the top to bottom, and it needs to be addressed at all levels, because just merely writing it on the paper, and you have to do so much in order to actually make your workplace very inclusive. And I think there were some very good points there, which our listeners and viewers are going to take into account. So, Lindsay, what role do you think can the management play in tackling intersectionality in the workplace? As Lindsay has already said and shed light on inclusivity and being more inclusive, but obviously there has to be something done to tackle it first as well, because we need to go up to that stage of inclusion. We need to first understand what are the barriers and what are the things that already are there rooted in our systems. So how would you say that?
So firstly, again, we have that education piece. So actively go out of your way to absorb as much information as possible about individuals from underrepresented groups or those with protected characteristics, and just try and get a grasp of some of the challenges that they might face. And then I think it comes down to role modeling. So you need to actively call out inappropriate language and behaviour in the workplace, and you need to kind of nip things in the bud very early doors before anything escalates any further. I mean, our approach to that would tend to be more of a positive slant. So we're not one for, say, bullying and harassment training, because I think that leads with a negative mindset from the outset. It's a lot of sets. But for us, it's also about how we really communicate effectively, and just being conscious of the language that we all use to make sure that everybody does feel like they belong, and they feel safe at work and that they can be themselves. So role model and educate would be my 2 points that management can really get involved with.
I think that's great, role model and being mindful. And that is something that is lacking from most of the places. And sometimes it comes down to us itself. We work for a company, they tell us everything, their code of conduct, we go through everything, but then it's also our responsibility as employees, as humans, as person, to make sure that we give a space for everybody to grow while we are growing ourselves. Because you see, when you join somewhere, it means you are ready to take that challenge with them, and as long as the employer is working hard, I believe it's a two-way process. It's not only that employers are only responsible for bringing diversity and inclusion in the workplace. It also comes down to the employees, their traits, and with what mindset they're coming in. Are they really aware of the barriers they're going to face in? Are they really ready to accept people as a team as well? And that's how, because we all contribute to a safe and supportive environment together. We can't just do it, and we cannot always blame the management, because when we are talking about ETI, what we really are looking from the Dynamo's perspective is that we are looking for an inclusive approach, not only that employers have to do everything and not only the employees. I think that thing really needs to change as well. And that comes back to my other question, is how can management provide a safe and supportive environment for all staff? So who would like to go? I think you both will add value onto it. So
we'll probably tag team throughout, but I think, first of all, they have a duty to put in place really robust structures, policies, and procedures. So it's all well and good to say that employees have a part to play, and they definitely do, but they need the environment to be created in such a way that they can add value. So there needs to be listening groups or focus groups so that they can really share their thoughts and their feelings about different aspects of their work life. And you need to think about that from an inclusive approach. So setting time aside for coffees is great, but also maybe having the benefit of anonymous surveys. So if there are controversial issues that they don't necessarily feel comfortable raising personally, that they do have that medium to get things off their chest that are really important. And then management need to have structures, policies, processes in place to follow up with all of these things, to make sure that they're being implemented and to make sure that employees are being listened to and it's being actioned off the back of that. That would be my advice.
Yeah, obviously I totally agree with that. And I think having that framework in place, but then also creating that culture where it's okay to speak up and knowing that. So say, for example, if you have an incident that does need to be escalated, that they know who to report it to, how to report it, and in what way. But anything that doesn't need to be escalated, that it can be managed well with those colleagues that it's happening to. So having that respectful environment where you can respectfully challenge one another, and rather than leading with, defense and being attacking if someone says the wrong thing, maybe just accepting that it wasn't intended in that way. So the intent versus the impact. And I think that's a really important way to make people feel safe, both as the potential perpetrator, but as the potential target of the incident as well, where you know that people do have your back and are willing to support you, to speak up for you. But also, if you do say something that could be taken in the wrong way or could be offensive, then you're not going to feel humiliated if you didn't mean it in that way.
I think it really helps too if you have company values that really support that, because sometimes it's not nice from an individual's perspective. They might not feel comfortable saying, that didn't quite sit right, or that offended me, or whatever their thoughts or issues might be. Whereas if there's a bit of a corporate stance or a business stance, actually our values conflict with that. Integrity is really important to us, and that kind of jars with our company values. It's sometimes nice to be able to fall back on the corporate side of things to kind of back up your viewpoints and opinions.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the point is that it's very important we have safeguarding policies in place, very robust ones. So from top to bottom, from everybody who works in that layer needs to be aware that there is a robust safeguarding policy, and nobody in any capacity should be putting anybody else in terms of like any abuse, neglect, or subject to any harm. When that is the core of any organization, whether corporate, or I think safeguarding is mostly, I've observed that in the charity sector, and especially when they deal with domestic abuse services or mental health services, that is a core of their organization, very much displayed everywhere, and they've got some policies as well. So I think that is something we can always look at bringing in our own organizations too, to make a core of it, because once you know that our words can put somebody to any harm or any abuse or any neglect, you always have second thoughts before saying this, because then as you were saying, Lindsay, that we can actually integrate it in our values. Like we can have, like, we have zero policy against racism, or we do not or would not accept anything that's happening to our customers or our clients, whoever it is. So I think these kind of things can be integrated, and the management or anybody can provide a safe and supportive environment, because we all contribute to it. So Lindsay, coming back to that, I would like to ask Lindsay, why do you think is it important to address intersectionality and topics like this right now than ever?
I think it's always been important. I think the sooner the better, really. And if that's now, then great. Make a start on it now, or have a look at it now. But it's something that really should be happening a very long time ago. So, and it's it's something that is especially prevalent, I think, this year because of COVID, the dreaded C word. I think a lot of people are actually getting that window into employees' lives more, so they're getting to actually see the challenges that they might be facing or what their home life is actually like, and maybe that you wouldn't necessarily show up to the office with. So I think, especially after this year, it is really important to address it, and diversity and inclusion should be business critical, and it has to be something that is thought about in a strategic way. It's no good just bringing in, unconscious bias training and thinking you've done the job. It really needs to be, you need a D&I strategy in place, and you want to have a framework, and you need to do some real auditing before you do anything. So I think now is as good a time as any, and the quicker you can look at it and put things in place, the better, really. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's very, very important what you have said. It has always been important, and now we are talking about it. What I'm happy about is at least we are now talking, and we are now looking at ways, and I think we're listening to more people, recording their views and experience, because I believe that even if there is been work done, and I know that there's been a lot of work done around EDI already in the Northeast, it's just that the way of putting that all together and recognizing the people as well who have done it, and it's important to hear how they've done it and learn from each other as well. This is like, because if you are looking at an inclusive approach, we all have to do it together. So yes, coming back to it, I would like to have some food for thought. Would like to say to our viewers, listeners, and any one of us who's listening to you at the moment, what would you like to tell us, or any feedback, anything?
I think my advice would be that diversity and inclusion, I think even the words are scary. Okay, so it's not part of our day-to-day jobs. So you might be running your business, you're fighting the fire of daily life, and diversity and inclusion and the words can be quite uncomfortable. And the whole topic is quite uncomfortable. But it is so much better to be proactive than having to react to a really unfortunate circumstance internally. Not only is diversity and inclusion proven in terms of the business case, it's more innovative, creative, profitable companies. Like, that's fine. Morally and ethically, it's the right thing to do. And it's so much easier to have some time, consider it, and understand how you're going to implement that and thread that through your cultural DNA than finding yourself in hot water because something unfortunate's happened to the site internally. And that's so easy. There could be one comment, one incident taken out of context, and it can be so damaging for a company's reputation. And it's never, or very rarely, with any malice or bad intent, but the impact of it can be really devastating. So food for thought is, it's uncomfortable. Some consider it as fluffy, but it can have serious consequences on your organizations and businesses. So just have a step back, dedicate yourself some time to actually doing some homework. And if there's anything, questions, help, soundboarding that you want to do, then reach out to us, not for any training or consultancy, but for a coffee, and just pick our brains. And we're more than happy to do that. As you said, it's all about having that inclusive approach and making sure that we can do everything that we can. That's mine.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now we'll ask Lindsay as well. What's your food of thoughts going to be today?
I think, like Lynn says, it's really important to consider it not just as a whole company and feeling uncomfortable with that as a company, but protecting your staff and the company's reputation itself. But from a personal perspective as well, sometimes personally it can feel quite uncomfortable. And if we are a minority, if we ever put ourselves in a minority position, it might not be something that we're used to, but we should do that and feel that discomfort and have those uncomfortable conversations and really take time to reflect on ourselves and our approaches and our beliefs and the stereotypes and biases we also have. Because like you were saying as well, Faria, it's up to the employer to do what they can do, but actually it's up to all of us as individuals to take responsibility as well. We aren't just relying on workplaces to do this, just for the workplace and the culture to actually be able to do that in a meaningful way, but also as society, we kind of need to take that responsibility ourselves and make that change.
Yes, that's great. And as I've said, everybody is fighting a battle on their own. There's so much happening within our own lives. And as Lindsay was saying, this is a kind of it is a difficult topic for most of the people to understand. And I always say, and this is our approach as well, we are taking, it's good to listen to everybody. It's not always to have the idealizations around race and color and everything that goes on politically. But, politically, we are very open to talk about it. If something has happened, there's no filters on social media as well. And I would always say, if you're unsure about anything, especially these topics, they're very serious topics for most of the people. So it's better to have a judgment across it. It's better to have some training or have a word with some people who have already working through it or who have got more experience, because to be honest, I never had so much experience about intersectionality. And I've read about it, and that's why we've called you to speak about it. I would like to let everybody know that if you're looking for any training, especially around the gender biasness, and would you like to have any consultancy done, please, we've got this this website address for 5050future.co.uk. Please visit them. Their Twitter, social media, follow them, and you would be in touch. You would know the update. Stay tuned for the updates they're doing, any trainings that they're doing, and do not hesitate in reaching out to people like 5050 Future, because I know that some people think, oh, what are they going to say? How do we approach it? They're very approachable, and it's always good to speak to the people who have done work. It's good to learn from each other and be more human around it as well. These are very serious topics, and they can have devastating effects on your mental health and can really affect on your other life as well. And nobody is doing it as a malice, but it's also important to understand that companies have policies and procedures, and everybody has a process to follow as well. Before, obviously, we go, as I've told everybody of you before, we are at Dynamo is taking a very unique approach to EDI. We are looking to embrace it, dignify it, and inspire from it. You can subscribe to our channel, follow us on social media, and turn to our website for Dynamo Northeast. I would like to say a huge thank you to Lindsay and Lindsay for your time, for your very valuable comments, experience, knowledge that you've shared with us today. And as you've said, we have to make and work towards an inclusive society, not only in the workplaces, but for our homes, for our children, for us. It's the time now that instead of making agendas and protesting against it, we actually do something in real, and we can see and learn from there. We don't have to offend nobody by talking about these things. Thank you so much. I
Thank
hope you
you.
enjoyed. No problem. And thank you so much for coming in and joining us on the show. And good luck for all the great work that 5050 Future is doing, and you as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So, thank you everybody who's been listening and viewing this episode number 2. If you would like to get involved, please do so. We hear your feedback, we listen to your comments, and we would welcome any thoughts that you have around EDI. And as Lindsay and Lindsay were talking about inclusive workplaces, inclusive society, it's the time now we do something about it. So, take care, and I will see you next month with another topic and with another guest. Thank you so much.